Okay, I would like to welcome everybody to our Texas Motorcycle Safety Forum. We haven't had this in a couple of years in person. It's been virtual for the last couple. And it's nice to see everybody in person for a change. I like seeing real people as opposed to images on a computer screen. And I'm sure some of you would like that as well, or hopefully. As far as my name is Christopher Byers. I am the board chair for the TMSC at the current moment. We will be going into a new board chair in September. So this will be my last forum meeting. And so even though, I look forward to, serving on TMSC beyond that, but I'm looking forward to a new board chair, to be honest. It's nice to be a figurehead, but it's also not nice to be a target at times. So a little bit about me. I've ridden for a number of years. I am a motorcycle safety instructor as well. I'm also a rider coach for Msf, also an instructor for total control and ASI instructor as well. So I teach multiple curriculums, and I have a vested interest in this as much as you do as well. But my passion has always been riding ever since I was young, and I started riding when there wasn't a course and there wasn't a developed curriculum. Like a lot of you learned by having somebody that took the time to teach you, and you learned how to ride by not falling down and running into things on a continual basis. But with the advent of a structured curriculum, there was a need for, structured and specialized training for motorcycle riding, and that came about over the years. And so beyond that, we have other safety items that we also address as well, like personal protection. We also have, ongoing training beyond the basic rider course. Also, TxDOT has numerous activities that are involved in that. But there are a number of entities that, provide specialization for just motorcycles that you may or may not be aware of. But going beyond that, this forum is for you guys, and it's for everybody that rides, even the online component where people are kind of logging in virtually. And with the virtual people, I know that you're muted out, but please use the chat box if you have any questions or comments or would like to respond, and we will field those as needed, also during the breakout sessions as well. So I'd like to thank the sponsors that we currently have today. So TxDOT, we have Mona Lisa in the back. So if you need yard signs or anything, it would be that woman right there. I'd like to thank the YO Ranch for being able to host this event. The Centers of Transportation Safety at the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, their organization and staffing, which you'll see all along that road there. I've got Michelle here, some in the back corner. And so they are providing all the online, virtual, and all the stuff for this forum. And I would like to thank all the speakers, both live and virtual, that will be providing content for today. And if you need to check out any of their bios, they're in the little available pamphlet that you have that was given to you when you checked in. And I most certainly like to thank all the attendees that actually showed up today, and also all the virtual people that have logged in. I appreciate your interest, and also appreciate your support. So a couple things for the plan for the day. So the vendor tables, we have a number of vendor tables around. We have the Look Twice, which is outside or toward the very back. Road Guardians are outside the door and to the other corner. And then we have the Rex table, which I have not seen yet, but it will be here. The simulator that some of you have played with and had the opportunity to check out before you came in, it's located directly outside, right behind the conference. And That's impaired riding. And so just go to the back. It'll be available until lunchtime. So please make use of that, and it's kind of fun. So how many have had a chance to try that out? Did you have fun? Yeah. Some had fun, some that didn't. All right. We have Rod with TTI that's doing a study on personal protection equipment. And anybody that wrote in today, I know a number of you did. If you do have your personal protection equipment, get with Rod because he would like to have some pictures of what you're wearing. The big guy in the back. So he's doing a study on personal protection equipment. So we have morning breakout sessions as well in 3 rooms. So please pick one, but try to split your time equally. So make sure you make it to all of them. So we've got 2 rooms. We've got the Spanish room and also, I don't know what the other room's called. Cypress room. So during our afternoon breakouts, you also want to split it into 3 groups. So split your time equally. Make sure that you rotate through all the sessions. There's great content in all the sessions that we have. And make sure that you rotate through each one. There's also the strategic action plan ranking, which you'll also see. It's a big bundle of papers that's actually stapled together. So if you have time, go ahead and fill that out. And once you fill that out, please leave it at the back table so that the people at TTI can gather that information. Also, there's also rankings on certain things. So outside of that, we also have the little pamphlet with the QR codes. You can shoot those as well and go ahead and rank it as well.
This is for the session
Session breakouts.
breakout surveys.
So those are the breakout surveys. And so the program also has speaker bios and for each session presenter. So go ahead and check that out before you actually attend the sessions and gain a little bit of knowledge about your speaker before entering that session. So the speakers that we have for today, for this morning's session, we have Letty von Rossum. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Von Rossum, okay. She is Behavioral Traffic Safety Section Director for the Traffic Safety Division for the Texas Department of Transportation. And she will be the first speaker this morning. And she served in the Behavioral Traffic Safety team since September of 2016. And she is the appointed director at the moment, or as of January of this year. So Letty, would you like to take over?
Thank you.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here today. I want to welcome you to the Motorcycle Safety Forum on this beautiful, crisp Saturday morning. And on behalf of the Motorcycle Safety Coalition, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to start out by thanking all of our partners, all of you, for everything you do to help us reduce crashes, fatalities, and serious injuries that occur on our roadways every day. We're really proud to be partnering with TTI this morning on this forum. And I want to add a special thank you to TTI for all the work you've done putting this together. It's an amazing job. I like to start my presentations with this slide. It has 4 numbers. Okay, well, 3 numbers and a date. 4,486. That's the number of fatalities on our Texas roadways. And that's the highest fatality count since 1981. And the second highest since 1940, which is when we started tracking the yearly fatalities due to crashes. 12.3. That's the average number of fatalities on Texas roads due to crashes. November 7, 2000. That's the last deathless day on Texas roads. At least 1 person has died each day on Texas roads since that day. And since that day, almost 77,000 people have lost their lives on our roadways. I want to give you a quick snapshot of our program. In order to receive funding from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, we have to prepare an application, if you will. That application is called our Highway Safety Plan. And the Highway Safety Plan identifies traffic safety problems. It describes planned solutions and apportions available funds to support grants for each of the program areas listed on this slide. As you can see, the motorcycle program area is on the slide as well. Fatalities, injuries, and crashes have been decreasing and trending in the right direction from 2016 to 2019. Unfortunately, in 2020 and 2021, we saw an increase in fatalities on Texas roadways. Like I said, 4,486 people lost their lives due to crashes, which is a 15% increase compared with the previous year. We have seen risky behaviors increasing during the pandemic, such as speeding, impaired driving, distracted driving, and people just not buckling up. The fatalities aren't just numbers. They represent fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers, friends, co-workers, spouses, daughters, and sons. The death of one affects the lives of many. Here you can see the 2021 Fatality Summary by emphasis area, number of fatalities, and percentage of fatalities. One thing to note is that the percentage of fatalities will not sum up 100% because you can have multiple contributing crash factors for each crash. However, as you can see from this chart, speed, unrestrained or lack of seatbelt use, and DUI all, which includes alcohol and drugs, account for the largest percentage of factor for fatality crashes in 2021. In 2021, 34% of traffic crash fatalities in Texas were speed related. And when we say speed related, it includes any of the following three contributing factors: failure to control speed, unsafe speed, or speeding over the limit. Last year in 2021, in Texas, crashes involving unrestrained occupants resulted in 1,227 fatalities, which represent 27% of total traffic fatal crashes in Texas. Texas seatbelt usage was 89.81 in 2021, which is a slight decrease from the seatbelt use in 2019 that was 91%. In 2021, 46.2% of all vehicle occupants killed in crashes where seatbelt use was known were unrestrained. So this is an area where we really need to work on to get people to buckle up again. We know that we save lives with this program. NHTSA has estimated that since 2002, when we started our Click It or Ticket campaign, we have saved 6,587 lives and prevented over 100,000 serious injuries because more people are buckling up. In 2021, 30% of total traffic crash fatalities in Texas were DUI all related. This includes alcohol and drugs. Unfortunately, our pedestrian fatalities also increased in 2021 and accounted for approximately 18% of all the fatalities in Texas. Bicyclists accounted for approximately 2%. In 2020, motorcycle registrations comprised less than 2% of the vehicle mix in Texas, but motorcyclists account for approximately 11.6% of traffic fatalities. And in 2021, 12% of the total crash fatalities in Texas were motorcyclist fatalities. From 2016 to 2019, we had also experienced a decrease in motorcyclist fatalities. Unfortunately, however, in 2021, the number of fatalities increased to 521, which is an increase of 7.8% from 2020 to 2021. All motorcyclist fatalities in 2021, of all of them, 45.5% were not wearing a helmet at the time of the crash. Our collaboration with our partners to address roadway safety makes a difference. History has shown us that. Unfortunately, now we have to find new ways, different ways to modify behaviors. It's going to take all of us working together to eliminate fatalities on our roadways and to reach our goal of 0 deaths. Please help us end the street. Thank you.
Thank you, Letty, for providing that information. Our next speaker that we have is going to be Michael Strawn. Still don't know why we call him Ford, but I'm sure we'll figure it out. He's a manager of the outreach, audits, and policies for the TDLR, Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. He is also the team lead on transitioning from the motorcycle safety unit and the ATV safety program to TDLR, and also continues to be involved in the policy, procedure, and development of that program as well.
Okay.
Come on, Michael.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Michael Strawn. I guess I'll address the name issue to begin. My middle name is Ford. Clear up the confusion. First of all, I'd like to thank TMSC, TTI for having us. And of course, thank you to all the instructors that do all the hard work. Most of us get to sit in the office. Y'all are out in the heat, saving lives every day. So can't appreciate the effort, dedication, and the heart that y'all put into this industry every. I guess with that, we'll get started since we're short on time. First, we always like to open up, and I can't stress this enough, to sign up on our listserv on our website. It's house cleaning. You'll hear me say it every single time, but it's true. We regulate many, many industries. We have 39 different industries, 800,000 licensees. So if you're not signing up for our listserv email updates, we cannot take the time to reach out to every single one of you to email you about every industry change that's happening. With our listserv, when you're signed up for that, when we're releasing information, it broadcasts it to everybody who signed up for those releases. So rule updates, process changes, law changes, events that are happening, we will let you know, and it's the best way for us to keep in touch with you all. And again, with 39 different industries, 800,000 licensees, we just cannot keep in touch with everybody as much as we would like to. One of the things that TDLR always really strives for is communication, cooperation, and community building with our licensees. We are currently about to roll into our strat planning season. And what that means is every other year we go into legislative session. There's new laws that come out from that. And in the downtime of that, when we're implementing these new laws, we also have strat planning sessions. What these are community forums where we open up the floor to all of our licensees across the state. And we allow you all to come in and tell us what you don't like, what you do like, what we're doing wrong, what you would change if you were in charge of this industry for a day. That gives us the information that industry needing, what are they not getting, that we can advocate for those changes in your industry. We as state representatives cannot advocate and we cannot request changes on our own behalf. But if we have documented information from you all, from the licensees, and we can say, these are common problems, this is what's not working on the industry, we take those forward when the representatives, the senators come and talk to us. So we have strat planning sessions coming up April 11th and April 13th. They will also be virtual. There will be links to them on our website. They're from 8:30 to 11:30 in the morning and from 5:30 to 8:30 at night. We broadcast these around the state. April 11th will be San Antonio and Arlington, and April 13th will be Houston and Brownsville. We are also holding a centralized Austin meeting with a date that has not been released yet. However, we will release that on our listserv that you heard about earlier. So please, if you have comments, you have questions or concerns, please let us know. You know, we only know what we're doing right. We only know what we're doing wrong based on what you're telling us. So please engage with that part of our process and help us make this industry better for you all. A little bit, as we start looking at how we're going to do things better, I just want to let everybody know that we have committed to a new email type system, what we call Dynamics. So you'll see that in the past, you may have had an email that goes directly to an individual. We still have those. So myself, anybody on our team, you can always email us directly. However, for official processes, daily processes, we have moved to a system that now tracks everything that's coming in. So we can see common issues from all of our programs, what people are contacting us about, what their issues are. And this again allows us as an agency to respond better. When we were just getting generic emails, there's no way to know, is there a ton of issues with, range questions or, people can't get into rooms, whatever the case may be. This system is now allowing us to work smarter and not just harder at times. We've also changed some of the processes already from this. We started seeing now the emails and things that were coming back and forth, and we've changed processes already and going back to range approvals. Used to, you would contact us, we would review it, then approve it, send it back to you. You have to go back to the curriculum provider, get approval from them. They would send it back to you. Then you would send everything back to us. Now we've changed that process. You simply go to the curriculum provider, get your approval, send everything completed to us, and then we will, approve the range from there. We've cut out half of the back and forth for that. It was burdensome on you all, it's burdensome on us, and so we've pivoted to make those changes as well. Moving into current rules and law updates that have happened, as I talked about on the listserv, this is how we get this information out. Many of you all may be aware of some of these changes that happened a few months ago. Many of you all may not. Some of the things that we have heard when we were talking to the industry, when we talked to our advisory board members, these subject matter experts have been in this field way longer than anybody in my agency has been dealing with it. We heard some of the complaints. We know that parking lots are at a premium. We know that space is hard to come by. So when there was an additional 20-foot runoff, we started working with curriculum providers, asking questions. What was needed? What was not needed? Was there a danger or an inherent safety added to an additional 20-foot runoff? It was found that there was not an additional safety concern there. And so we moved back the rules to be in line with what the curriculum providers are doing with a 20-foot runoff. So, it opens up some of the ranges that people had, some of the constraints that they were having on finding spaces. And we hope that that will make things a little bit easier. Into the future, COVID happened, and we have to be able to respond quickly. Part of that is no longer requiring a physical building for teaching the classroom portion of the curriculum. That is going to set us up for something we're going to talk about a little bit later and get into. But we have to start looking forward. Many of our programs across the board have had to go virtual due to COVID, and moving forward, this allows the flexibility for our training sites to adapt as needed. Student admission, I'm going to kind of run through some of the stuff because we are short on time. We've really changed a lot of different things on student admissions. Policies, setting policies beforehand. TDLR is committed to putting the power back. You all. We will not tell you what your policies can or cannot say as far as dismissing, accepting, or handling a student. We just ask that if you are going to set those policies, you are clear and upfront with the person that's signing up with you. We are not going to dictate the times and the amounts and fees that you charge. We're just going to say that you are clear upfront in that contract with that student before they engage. And that's kind of putting the power back in the business to make the decisions that are correct for the business. Again, verification of course completion kind of goes into that same thing. What we're talking about, students have completed all elements of the course can receive a certificate. I know with e-certs and everything coming through, sometimes it's hard to juggle all of that. If somebody forgets a portion of it, and if your business, you don't want to kick them out of the class, but you still want to train them on the range that day or in the classroom, you're more than welcome to. They just cannot get a completion certificate until they've satisfied all portions of that curriculum. We've talked with Msf, Total Control, to make sure that they agree, and we're all on the same board with that, which is the completion certificate just cannot be issued until the completion of every aspect of their training is done. I'm gonna get down to, sorry. I'm going to just keep skipping because I know we're short on time. Course requirements.
Okay.
So one of the other changes we looked at across the state was our course requirements for student to instructor ratios. Right now, we have moved to everyone can be 8-1. There is no stepping from 6-1, 8-1. However, to make that change in the REM system, you do need to contact us, and our staff will be able to update that and move you to an 8-1. When we're setting up new individuals, we're automatically setting that. But we are now moving to an 8-1 ratio across the board. Again, curriculum providers, if they have more stringent standards, are more than welcome to impose those standards as being more stringent. However, from the state standard, 8-1 is acceptable for any licensed instructor in the state. We also added the ability for 2 students to share a 3-wheeled motorcycle, obviously not at the same time, but to share the 3-wheeled motorcycles wherever they're there. We additionally have clarified when this program came over, there was no official law or rule governing range aids or range assistants, as we call them. So when our rules were first set up in this program, it did not allow for range assistance. That was something that was a little bit of a culture shock across the board. This was one of the first things that we looked at addressing as we heard from the community. And we now allow for range aids to be on the course. They're not an instructor, so in the simplest of terms, they cannot provide instruction. They can ride demos, they can throw cones, they can move bikes around, but they may not provide students instruction about riding, the curriculum, or anything else because they are not an instructor. I'll move on to this. We also wanted to go down to the common questions about first aid and CPR. This is a licensing issue that we commonly see right now. And right now, if you are taking you are required to maintain your CPR certification, first aid certification. You can be audited at any time, but the only time you need to send proof of that into TDLR is when you are renewing your license. You do not have to send it the second you take it. Just keep it on hand, and when your license comes up for renewal, you'll submit it with the rest of the paperwork. A little bit the Dynamics web form earlier. If you have a correction anywhere on our website, any of our paperwork now has a hyperlink to that resource. You'll just select your industry, put your information in, and select that it's a REMS contact and contact us throughout. This Dynamics website will contact everybody in my division. It will not just contact myself or anyone else, and allows us to respond to things very quickly. Right now, due to the system and the efficiency we've gained in it, we are current on a day-to-day response rate. So if you're sending a response, we are responding within 1 business day at this time. It is also how you contact us to add any competencies, trainings, or anything else that you may have completed at that point in time to add that competency into our REM system. And finally, or not finally, but additionally, we wanted to talk about our site audit process. I know y'all had technical site visits in the past. Something I really want to talk about, and he's here today, and you can't really see him because he's off camera. But one of my staff members, former DPS employee, Mike Sconza, he's been out in the community doing our site audits. It's a process that we're really proud of. We're really excited for, because this for us is a training opportunity. The charge that I gave Mike when we go out to an audit is not a gotcha process. We're not out there to find people. We're not out there to tell you what you're doing wrong or stand in the corner and just take notes. We're going out to educate individuals. Mike comes out, and when he's coming out, he's talking through the website. He's talking through any changes, policy changes, curriculum updates. He's walking you through REMS. We're allowing retesting of students now. He's going to walk you through how to do that. So when you come out on our website, we're going to have a list of standards and requirements that we're asking of that. But he's going to be checking your classroom paperwork, your range, your equipment, your striping, everything else. I'm not saying things cannot result in violations, but our goal is not to come out and issue a violation, especially in the first year when we're doing this. It was really an educational opportunity that we're taking when we come out. Mike has done a phenomenal job. If you have the ability to spend time with him, we're sending him to every site around the state as quickly as possible. We're sending out surveys, and please let us know how we can improve that process. Again, if you want to know more about the audit process, on our website is a form that says, what to expect when you're on the website, what we're focusing on, what you should have in place, what you should have ready. And Mike will reach out to you. We do not do unannounced visits unless there's a reason to. We're coming to work with you to help you make sure that you're complying with any laws, rule changes out there, so that we can all be the most professional that we can in this industry. Just a couple things that we have found though through motorcycle audits, and I would just want to stress some of these things. I'm not going to go through every bullet point here. One of the things that we've seen, and Mike and I both have seen when we've gone out, is students riding off of the range. It is absolutely cannot happen, guys. Your insurance doesn't cover it. We've seen students where there's moving traffic. These are unlicensed, untrained individuals, and they should not be riding anywhere off the range or anywhere outside of an exercise. It is something that can end up at, and I cannot stress that enough. If you see it, I know people get bad habits, but it should not be happening. Touch up your ranges as well, but please, at the forefront of it, you all are the forefront of safety, and let's make sure that we're embodying that when we're out there. These students we've had students get hurt off of the range, and we want to make sure that we reduce any potential injuries as we move forward. And I'll close out with, this is something that's been, you've heard about in other states, other areas that is coming through. I just will acknowledge, and then during breakout sessions, we'll be happy to talk to anybody about this. But TDLR is currently working with the Motorcycle Safety Foundation about rolling out this variant. It's something that's exciting. As you heard, we talked earlier about the addition of virtual classrooms. This kind of goes hand in hand with that. This is going to fit kind of that molding. There are going to be steps to that. So again, sign up for the listserv because we have already prepared a statement that will go out talking about how to add this competency, how this is going to affect you, and how you're going to be able to begin training it, and when you're going to be able to begin training this variant in the state of Texas. We are still coordinating that, so there's a lot of to be determined at this time. But we're really looking within the next month that this was something that's going to roll out in Texas. Again, I don't want to put pressure on MSF. They're in the back corner probably telling me to shut up, but but it's something we're excited for as we move forward. It's going to provide a little bit of variation, and it's going to allow the businesses to choose what's right for them. Here in Texas, again, as we said, we empower the business. We are not going to force you to use the latest variants. We're going to approve curriculums and variants across the state, and your business can choose which curriculum provider, which training, which variant is correct for your business at that time. And with that being said, I'll go ahead and close out. And I thank you all for your time today. Appreciate it.
I'd like to thank Fort Strawn for providing that presentation as well. For the next presenter,
If you want to just turn that around, I'm just not using my computer. That way I'll just look. Are you able just so I can see it from up there? I don't want to take a chance. You better not.
Yeah.
okay, so the next presenter will be Eva Shipp, and she's a senior research scientist at the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, and she will be providing the next session on Texas motorcycle crash data. Come on, Eva.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to really quickly give you a snapshot of crash data, looking mostly at all crash severities, not just fatalities, because you already got that from Letty's presentation this morning. Next, there we go. So this is looking at from 2013 to 2021, the number of overall crashes in Texas. And you can see we're starting to do a decrease, and now we're seeing an uptick from the 2020 to 2021 years. And then what I want to point out with the next slide, this is fatalities. But something interesting happened with COVID. So we know we have good data showing that congestion decreased, speeding increased for all vehicles on the roadways. And then we have anecdotal evidence suggesting people wanting to be more outside, away from confined spaces where it was easier to contract the COVID virus, which may have meant more motorcycling. And so that might be also contributing to why we're seeing increases in fatalities, because we know speed increases injury severity. Next slide. This is just showing you a breakdown of age and sex. So the pie chart over there, we're seeing that people of all ages are involved in motorcycle crashes, although the highest frequency is in that 25 to 34-year age group. And then the icons on the other side with the people, we see that about 87% of crashes involve males and about 11% females. This is all of all injury severities. So where are crashes happening? 67% of them are occurring on our urban roadways, with the remainder occurring in rural areas. And a third of those motorcycle crashes that are fatalities or suspected serious injuries are occurring at intersections where motorcyclers have an increased likelihood of encountering other vehicles. So intersections are often not a great place to be in terms of crashes. Next slide. How many vehicles are involved in motorcycle crashes? About 56% involve two vehicles. So we see a large proportion also involving just one vehicle, just the motorcycle. In those multi-vehicle collisions, they most often occur when one vehicle is turning left, about 19%, going straight, about 10%, and with the 7% being a side swipe. And then in terms of helmet use, we saw that 46% of motorcycles who died in a crash were not wearing a helmet. In terms of all crash severities, that's also still high at about 38% of motorcyclists in a crash not wearing their helmet. Next slide. In terms of impairment, again, this is all crash severity. 6% of all motorcycle crashes involved in impaired motorcyclists. This proportion increases dramatically when we look at fatalities or suspected serious injuries. And there's a session at 11 o'clock, I think, that'll go into a deeper dive into impaired riding. When you look at their actual BAC or blood alcohol content level, if it was above 0, then the average level was about a 0.158. So that's pretty substantial. And when we look at above the legal limit of 0.08, the average increases to about 0.172. And then I'll point out the range there from minimum of 0.08 to a maximum of all the way up to 0.338. So you can imagine a little bit high. Next slide. In terms of riders and speed, 10% of motorcycle crashes involved a speed marked as contributing factor of unsafe speed and speeding over the limit. So it's a little bit different than the definition Letty gave for all fatalities, which also included failure to control speed. If we included that contributing factor as well, this 10% proportion would also increase quite substantially. In half of these crashes, the motorcyclist ran off the road and struck an object. So we know that speed plus hitting something does not equal health. Next slide. And in terms of M licensing, 58% of motorcycle crashes involved a motorcyclist not having their M license. That's a pretty substantial proportion. Next slide. And I'll just wrap up here with we try and keep our motorcycle crash statistics updated fairly regularly. You can find them all on the Look, Learn, Live website. Also, we're going to have an additional resource through the Texas Traffic Records Coordinating Committee website called TxDOT. This is the motorcycle statistics are not up on TxDOT yet, but it's another tool that will help you screen for districts or other geographic areas that may be showing an overrepresentation of motorcycle crashes. So it's a tool to help you figure out where to further devote your resources. Finally, I'm Shipp. There's my contact information. I manage the crash analytics team at TTI. Feel free to reach out to me for more information. And then my colleague, Emily Martin, is sitting over there, is wonderful. You can also, if you need something, you can also ask her as well. And that's my little overview of the crash data.
Thank you, Ava. Okay, our next presenter is going to be Dr. Ray Ochs. from the Motorcycle Safety Foundation, and a lot of people that are in the training community don't really need an introduction to Dr. Ray. We kind of know who he is for the most part. But he's the Vice President of Training Systems for the MSF. He has been a motorcyclist since 1968 and became an MSF certified instructor in 1973. He earned his doctorate in educational psychology with an emphasis on adult education. He was also the director of the Traffic Safety Institute at Eastern Kentucky University and has been with MSF since 2002.
I'm old, I get it, I'm old.
Well, that's okay. I've been teaching your curriculum for a long time, so I'd like to welcome Dr. Ray Ochs.
Well, good morning. Great to be with you. I'm gonna see if I can get set up here. I've got 25 minutes worth of content, 2 minutes. What do you think I gotta do?
Cut a lot?
Cut a lot?
Nah.
Well, I'm used to that. I can talk real fast, but it's a pleasure to be here. It's great to be with you. I do have some very general comments, trying to set, a tone for a theme for today's activities. I do like to find out, who my audience is in some ways, trying to figure out if you're more like this or you're more like this. So I'm going to assume you're kind of more like that group right there, because that'll help speed things along a little bit. So how many of you are rider coaches? Yeah, almost half. That's good. All right. So it's going to be a little bit redundant. How many of you are riders? How many of you are real riders?
What does that mean?
Okay, well, that means you have more pictures of you and your motorcycle than of your significant other. All right, well, I lost a few. How about you have more dress, or you have more motorcycle boots than you do dress shoes? All right, we're getting there. How about when you binge watch? Do you binge watch motorcycle crashes? How about binge watch safety videos? I don't know if I can believe that or not. We like to think so. Safety is our priority, and you can see why based on the information you have so far. But one of the things I want you to be able to do is binge think a little bit. And that's what that particular slide is referring to, is kind of a lost art through COVID and through attention spans, all those kinds of things. So let's find our purpose here. And that's kind of the theme for what we're going to try to talk about here. So starting out to get the juices roll a little bit, here's a puzzle. Some of you may have seen it, but your goal here is to connect those 9 dots with 4 straight lines without letting your proverbial pencil off the table. So can you do that in your mind's eye right now? 4 straight lines without letting your eyes or a pencil off the screen. Connect those. Now, the theme of this particular puzzle is the idea, well, you want to be able to think outside the box.
Yeah.
But you have to do that to get these 4 straight lines to work. You can see how that is. So with that, try to come up with a theme that would fit with what we're talking about today. And I just noticed down the road a little bit, in Texas miles anyways, just a little bit, you've got the Johnson Space Center. And I thought, well, that's about talking about space. So I thought, let's talk about space. What I want to do is come up with, well, first of all, this holistic idea. What the heck does that mean? You can read the definition there. Big picture kind of stuff. And when we look at what we do, we all have pieces of this puzzle, pieces of this elephant. And in some ways, instead of calling it a motorcycle safety enterprise, I might try that. Mine just quit working.
Yep.
Oh, there it goes. Okay, animation takes a little longer. Well, actually, it's about people. That's why we kind of like to use the word motorcyclist when we talk about safety and have that endeavor. But our goal here would be, if you go to the next slide. Go ahead and hit the next button. So you can find yourself in here somewhere. As we all come together, my job is to make sure MSF is aligned with trying to make riding safe, trying to make it a fun activity, trying to improve the quality of life, let's say, which is what we're all about. So somewhere in here, you found yourself, I'm sure. Next slide, please. So as we look at this enterprise, you can go to the next click. as we look through this, there's a really good book out there that, it's been a seminal document book that a lot of organizations, if you look at the subtitle, it's talking about a learning organization. And these are the 5 characteristics of that organization. So no matter where you fit in this system, you might think about some of these things from, having that shared vision, we all want the same things, to being, the best we can be, our personal mastery, to team learning within our own team or within our individual self. Aligned mental models, do we see things the same way? Do we want the same things? And do we agree on how to get there? And then, of course, see what everybody else is doing and try to match up where we all have a single-minded goal to get somewhere. If you get to the next slide. Try to find the most complicated definition of space I could, and I think that probably did the trick. But there's a lot that goes on in this space, and that's the theme of what I want to make in the next few minutes with some of my comments here. Next slide, please. So there you have the original space. You've got our overall goal here, all the things we're trying to do in our enterprise, which is, again, have safe, go from point A to point B without crashing. And we got that space here. There's things helping us get there, driving forces, and there's things keeping us from getting there, the restraining forces. And we just need to look at that to see how can we best produce results that we want. Next slide, please. So the idea is to have our like mission. We're all going the same way. We're all pointing to that pie in the sky type of thing. And this is what MSF's about. We're trying to, serve our purpose when it comes to reaching that goal. Next slide, please. So the definition of safety there, it's kind of an impossibility, which leads us to another huge space. Next slide. And that's the space between mobility and safety. How do you do both? If there's movement, there's going to be risk. So we have to manage this. And so we have to figure out what are we going to do with that space? We got a reward for mobility, but then we have to pay a price for it. So you look at safety resources, we have what's currently going on and what we have potential for. That makes another space. And a lot of it refers to dollars. Next slide. So through all the years, you've had what's called the 3 or the 4 E's of traffic safety. You can see them there. And the big picture question here is about resources. Next point, please, is if I were to give you a bag of 100 pennies, how would you divide that up? Where would you put your pennies on engineering, enforcement, education, emergency services? So you look at all that. Here's the education perspective, the MSF perspective from training systems anyway, where you've got, the top line there, Roman numeral 1, all the things that are done as countermeasures. How many pennies would you put to that? And how effective are they? We get asked all the time how effective training education is. We have to prove ourselves. But I wondered how these other things address the bottom line improvement. So you can see the bottom part of this slide here boxed in. The MSF approach is a little different from a lot of other training programs. A lot of times people think skill equals safety. That's pretty low level training. Yeah, we need it. So then we have skill training with safety messaging. And that goes back many years, but currently MSF's trying to dig deeper. And that's where we get into self-assessment. I do want to talk about some of the spaces in that self-assessment. Next slide, please. Another way to look at how we use resources is the loss reduction model. This goes back and give you a little history here, but I don't want to bore you with that. But you can see how the crash is split up here: pre-crash, crash, post-crash, and the 3 primary elements: the operator, the environment, and the vehicle itself. And next slide, please, or next. So where would you put your 100 pennies in these 9 areas to have the biggest bang for the buck? That's kind of what we're trying to accomplish today and seeing how we all fit into this. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to bypass this. I was going to have everybody sing this as kind of an entertainment break, but let's don't. But just look at that. I think all of you know the tune that goes with this. And then we were going to split into groups and see who was going to win the next slide. That was going to be fun. We can't have fun. This is a safety meeting. It's a safety forum. Let's get serious about this. But that would have been fun to do. But let's forgo that. Next slide, please. Go ahead and hit the next one. So MSF. This is the advertisement, I guess. But you can hit the next one too. So our mission and vision shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. Just to let you know, we did have a change of president and CEO a few years ago, right before COVID. And we're reorganizing somewhat, trying to streamline our processes quite a bit. You heard Ford talk about the EP 1x11, and I'd be glad to answer any questions about that later on, but that's been released and actually used in several states as we speak. Next slide. And go to the next. So a lot of people think MSF's just trying to get butts on bikes, and that isn't the case. As you can see here, the first step is to see if motorcycling is for you. And buried in our website is a nice little survey for riders to take to see if motorcycling is for them, see if they really want to get into it. I'll just let you briefly read down through those self-assessment items, because that's a gap. Somebody wants to ride, how do I get there to be a rider? Well, first you got to assess it. So this is, look that up. It's in the library of our website if you like. Next slide, please. And this is kind of our whole system as we reorganize it. You can see if you hit the next slide, it's a little piece coming down there. We want, people to figure out if it's for them, then get licensed and then keep the training going. And we have a whole system here to all those activities. The most interesting one that's new is under number 5 there. We have some skill building exercises. And again, I'm not going to detail that out, but it's more of an informal process to get people back on their own motorcycle, riding in an informal fashion. Where there's not a knowledge test, there's not a skill test, it's not a formal course. It's just getting people having fun and bonding with their motorcycle and having safety messages built in there somewhat after they're licensed. All right, next slide, please. Also, for those of you who are not rider coaches and want to get involved, we have 3 what we call host and event kits. These are available on our website. 2 of them are under $50. One of them because it includes the fatal vision goggles that you see out in the hallway there. It's a little more expensive, but these are ways you can get involved in doing local seminars. The intersection one, for example, is real good in schools because it addresses younger drivers. And it's kind of interesting in DVD because it also addresses truck drivers and also the general drivers out there. So there's actually 3 different versions of the DVD that's in there. And each of these comes with its own leader's guide, et cetera. But again, the point is not to get into this. The point is to say, here's opportunity. Here's how we cover that space between stimulus and a response. Next slide, please. So as we near the end here, what I want to do is just simply highlight the key points, looking at spaces with what MSF does. And these are 4 questions or 4 topics that are a central theme of what we try to accomplish. Next slide, please. These are the 5 core questions and answers that is a central theme that goes through all our coursework. What's the primary cause of crashes? Interaction of factors. What is a good rider? One that constantly reduces the factors that they contribute by applying a strategy. Number 3, it just takes a decision. It's just momentary. And of course, the challenge is to keep that going, to make the right choices, to keep safety a priority. So we address all this in our coursework. Also, we like the self-assessment of the 4 riding subtasks. So I just ask you very quickly to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 about how good a rider you are. How good are you physically? How do you handle the bike? How good are you mentally and perceptually? How well do you read traffic? The bottom left one there, the social aspects, and what traffic safety experts would say, that's where most of the crashes come from. People aren't getting along with each other out there. There's not enough cooperation and courtesy. How do you teach that? How do you get that across to people, the social aspect? And then the last one, the emotional, about staying within our own limits, riding with control, so to speak. So those are some ways we can self-assess. Next slide. So some more gaps here we've got. This is what we do in our coursework. We try to say, okay, what kind of rider are you? Are you really weak, ineffective, inferior? Are you average? Are you superior? Now, we know everybody here is superior, so we can take that as a given. But look at the ways we can self-assess, and this becomes the theme in our coursework, because we want to make a positive difference. And just throwing words out or having some campaigns may not really reach what really needs to happen in that moment of decision for someone who's a rider. So next slide. Risk offset. So here we have a couple scales just in your mind's eye here. See where you fall on the risk scale. If you're halfway point, you're average. And this is our typical rider from our perspective over the years. Average risk taker with average skill. And they crash too much. What are the real weak ones? Well, that's the next slide. Where you have high risk taker with low skill. We still see a few of those out there. Saw some coming up from the airport yesterday. A few people taking chances in cars. All the motorcycles I saw, pretty good shape, except their protective gear may not have been up to what we like to see. But I'm going to leave that alone. And that's superior riders. What do they do? Well, that's our goal. That's our overall safety goal there, is to get people low risk taker with a lot of skill, and they can manage themselves nicely. All right, let's finish up here. So the biggest space of all, I suppose, that we generally talk to try to get results would be that space between stimulus and response. Next one. So what's in the middle there? We can read what's there. That's us. That's us as individuals. That's us within an organization. What are we doing between that stimulus and response? Next slide. You know, they say it takes 1/10 of a second when you hit that button, you know, on the internet, it takes 1/10 of a second to go around the world. And they say the longest 18 inches though is, go ahead, next slide, that space between the head and the heart. Another key space. How do we really get motivated? How do we get results to happen? Next slide. So in terms of creating action, trying to get something to happen, these are where we become a catalyst. We're not an inhibitor. You know, we're not somebody that's restraining. We're really helping things move forward. You can see some of the characteristics, but I encourage you to take advantage of that during today's sessions. Next slide. So let's not get stuck on an island. And what island am I talking about? Next slide. Someday island. Still make it someday. Let's get some action going there. Next point. So your actions can make a difference. So with that, the final slide. Thank you and hope you have a meaningful forum.
Thank you, Dr. Ray, for providing that presentation. There are a couple slides in there that I'd like to print out. Now, there are a couple slides in there that I'd like to print out that you,
Oh, yeah, no, you're gonna post these, aren't you?
Yeah, we are going to post the slide decks, PDF version on the website. Look for them in the next week or so. Should be done by the end of next week.
all right. So I'd like to thank all the presenters this morning and thank you for all the content that you provided. I know that, you know, for me, there was actually content in every presentation that I could come away with.
Yeah, sorry, Chris. We do have on the back tables, there's a 2-question survey, or in the back of your program, the last page, if you pick the opening session QR code, you can do the 2-second survey or 2-question survey online. Please do surveys after each session. And they'll be available at the back tables with the pin. Just drop it back on the back table. And yes, have a break. We'll be starting out about, in about 10 minutes.
10:10.
Thank you.